Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our meeting with our kindergarten community regarding the changes that the district is making to our kindergarten program. I want to start this meeting by first and foremost appreciating all of the support, help, and guidance our families have provided to the children this year. I do understand that through the years in which you are raising your children, one of the key milestones for any parent is looking forward to the first day of kindergarten. And while we recognize and appreciate that your child's first day of kindergarten was quite different than what you may have anticipated or expected in the years that your child has been developing and growing, we hope that from September through today, that the opportunities that the district's teachers have been able to provide you with the constraints that have been in place have been valuable, have been fruitful, and have contributed to the academic and social development of your children, which is critically important to all of us as educators. I'm joined for the discussion tonight by a distinguished and somewhat formidable panel that is a little intimidating for me because we not only have some representatives of our central administration, including myself, but we also have each of the 5 elementary principals joined by 3 distinguished kindergarten teachers who are the ones that do the real work with your children every day. And so we're so grateful that everyone has joined us. So I'd like to start with introductions, and I'll start first and foremost with our kindergarten teachers who have joined us. We are joined by 3 members of the kindergarten team at Janae Elementary School. We have Marie Kieko, who is with us. Marie, can you just give us a wave so everybody who may not have children at Janae know who you are? Maureen McHugh is another kindergarten teacher at Janae, and Sue Pagonis. Sue, can you give us a wave? So we are very grateful that our teachers have joined us for this discussion regarding the transition to the full in-person program. Each of the 5 elementary principals is here. They are the ones that have helped guide, support, and respond to the different aspects of learning and support that were required throughout the year. And they have been instrumental in helping us to achieve this milestone at being able to open it up and provide more time for your children to come into our classrooms. I'll start with Mr. Jack Alvey, who is the distinguished principal at the Donald P. Sutherland Elementary School. Then we have Mr. Dan Garib, who is the principal at Green Meadow. Martin Mahar is the principal at Belltop. Wayne Grignon is the principal at Janae, and Helen Squillaci is our principal at Red Mill. So each of the 5 building leaders are here with us as well. I'm joined in central administration by a key individual who is very supportive of everything that we do in the district. Jim McHugh is our assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction, and he is the leader that I rely on to pull the details together, and he has done so in working with everybody to make this kindergarten announcement occur. In the background, we have Mark Adam, who is our public information specialist. He's making sure that you can see and hear me. If you don't like what I have to say, blame Mark Adam. If you like what I have to say, I'll take the compliment. Thank you very much. And then also helping with the technology is Peter Goodwin, who is our director of technology, who has been very responsive to all the technology requirements of our current hybrid program and also the full remote program. So without further ado, let's get started. My first challenge will be to share my screen with you. I'm going to do a brief formal presentation, and then we will have a question and answer session guided through a program called Thought Exchange, in which you will have an opportunity to post questions. The group will prioritize those questions, and then we will respond, we meaning the panel. If at any point We are unable to address your question. We will research it. We will talk with folks tomorrow and we will get you a response. So I need my panel to put their thumbs up if they can see my presentation. It should say kindergarten parent meeting. So looks like we're successful so far. So this is a forum to discuss the changes that we are making effective March 1st to our kindergarten program, which will involve your children being eligible to come to school 5 days a week for 5 full days of in-person instruction. The changes to the kindergarten model were based on the ongoing effort of the district to assess the current situation regarding the impact of COVID-19 on our students and on our faculty and staff. We were hoping to make this change earlier in the year. You may recall that we were discussing the idea of implementing changes to the program in mid to late October. It was during the time period from Halloween really up until the 3rd week of January that we saw within our region significant increases in the number of cases of COVID-19 within the community, among our students and our staff being impacted more so by quarantines than of actual cases. So we acknowledge that we would hope that we would be able to do this earlier. We weren't able to because of the changes that were occurring with the COVID-19 infection rate, but that infection rate has now come down to a level within our county of about 1.5%. On a 7-day rolling average, that means that only about 1.5% of community members who are tested for COVID-19, that those test results come back positive. So tonight we want to be able to move this kindergarten program to 5 days a week and answer any of your key questions and concerns. So we talked about the holiday surge. We are currently at an infection rate which is the lowest since November. In January, unfortunately, we're at a peak of about 11.3%. So after the holidays, it was difficult to provide the level of assurances related to health and safety that we needed to in order to be comfortable with this change. Overall in the district, based on current data, we've experienced about 140 total cases in East Greenbush. It's important to remember to take that number in perspective because we have more than 4,000 students, kindergarten through 12th grade, that we serve, and we have more than 800 employees in the district. So as a percentage of the number of members of our educational community, that 148 total cases is relatively low. And as you can see from the graph, we went through a period really beginning right before Thanksgiving into mid-January, and now a period in which the infection rate has declined. Our current hybrid has come with some constraints, but also some benefits. We have been able to avoid the starts and stops, the shifts from in-person learning to remote learning that some districts have experienced during the period of time in which these infection rates have increased and declined. It was really only the days before the Christmas holiday recess where we made a shift and we went to really what amounted to 2 days of virtual instruction for our children. And we did that because we were experiencing a number of students who were identified by the County Department of Health as contacts who were impacted by quarantines over the holidays and shortages of faculty and staff due to quarantining. The Board of Education at our previous board meeting has indicated their approval to shift the kindergarten program from its current hybrid model to a full 5-day in-person learning model. In doing so, we are maintaining the full remote option for our families who have selected that option. And we are very pleased that through evaluating our class lists, looking at our capacity within our classroom, and the availability of ensuring that we have sufficient spacing on our buses, that we can do this now, and we can do it with a level of confidence that everything will work out just fine, effective March 1st. Students are able to maintain their same teacher and class assignment given the model that we are proposing. You may remember that prior to the holidays, we were talking about a model that could require certain students to change teachers and certain teachers to change grade levels. We have looked at this, we've studied it, and through making some arrangements for some additional support in the form of some extra teaching assistants, we are able to offer this option without having any children change classroom teachers and without assigning any teachers to a different grade level. However, in some instances, in some buildings, some of our art music programs may be delivered in a different format. However, students will receive the same minutes of instruction in art and music in all those special areas that they were receiving currently under the hybrid. Those teachers may, in some instances, not in all instances, depending on the building, may be coming into the classroom as those larger spaces that traditionally serve music and art instruction are better spaces to be able to adjust the number of kids in the classroom in a more suitable space. That is happening in a limited number of instances. Additionally, as we move towards this model, nothing has changed regarding the district's health and safety protocols. We are all required, including our children, to wear masks every day. We will continue to require temperature checks. The parent COVID-19 screening application that is done every day is still required to be done. And we are bringing more children into our schools without encroaching on the current New York State Department of Health guidelines for social distancing, both in the classroom and on our buses. We have spoken to our transportation department over the last few weeks to review any implications regarding transportation. I'm very happy to report to our families that kindergarten students will remain on the same bus routes, and parents will still have the option, should you choose, to drive your child to school. And the buses will be maintained with the same parameters regarding social distancing and the same standards regarding the daily cleaning and disinfecting. We would point out that under State Education Department and Department of Health regulations, siblings are permitted to sit together on the bus. And so through that model, we are able to make sure that we have sufficient space on the buses without overcrowding the buses. So we're moving forward with a level of confidence, not only because of the infection rate, but because of the trust and confidence I have in many of the individuals that are here on the panel, and the way that the community has really risen to the occasion regarding helping us manage the COVID-19 through the safety precautions. It's very important for everybody to understand that it's more likely that what happens outside of school will impact our ability to offer in-person learning in school. It's the gatherings in large and small groups. It's making sure that we're wearing our masks when we're out in public, practicing all those good sanitation procedures and reminders that we've been hearing for almost a year now, and making sure that if you have symptoms or your child has symptoms, we stay home, okay? And we're monitoring those symptoms. We are fortunate that the district has a COVID coordinator. Again, we encourage anyone who has a question or a concern, if their child is symptomatic, talk to the school nurse in your child's respective school. And if you have questions specific about how a COVID-19 case might impact students, Karen Vincent is our COVID coordinator, and her contact information is available on the website. And always, in cases where we have children who may be symptomatic, we encourage parents to contact their child's primary care provider. So that's a brief presentation on the context in which we are moving forward on this option for our children. I'm really excited about it. Again, I hope that we could have done it earlier, but we couldn't. I am a former primary teacher, although I was cautioned by kindergarten colleagues that I worked with that if I really wanted to earn my stripes, I needed to teach in kindergarten. And I only taught as low as the first grade because I just didn't want to be exhausted every night. And I know that our kindergarten teachers go about their work with joy and appreciation for our youngest children, but I also know that they have a straight pathway through the pearly gates at some point, hopefully many, many years from now, for the work that they do with our youngest children. So I'm going to turn this over to you, the parents that are participating in the live stream and the members of our panel. We're going to start with Mr. Adam explaining a little bit about Thought Exchange for those families who have not participated in this format in the past. And let's get rolling with our excitement and our questions and our concerns regarding our changes to the kindergarten program, which will come about on March 1st. Mr. Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Simons. I'm just going to share my screen. Let's see.
As Mr. Adam is doing this, we have approximately 70 people participating in the live stream, so it's very good.
Just bear with me for a moment.
Do you notice how calm and cool Mr. Adam is under pressure? Here he goes.
Mr. Simons, did you see the screen now?
I can, Mr. Adam. I was just remarking on how calm and cool you are under pressure. I could not do that with such diligence. So, very good.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay. All right. So everyone will be using Thought Exchange. On your screen, you'll see a link. You can go to tejoin.com and then type in the 9-digit code. And then at that point, you'll see a question. What are your key questions, thoughts, or concerns about kindergarten returning to 5 days of in-person learning? So again, tejoin.com, and then type in the 9-digit code you see on your screen, and you will be able to ask a question or provide a comment. And then at the second stage, you'll be able to rank everyone's questions and thoughts. And the ones that are most popular in the rankings will rise to the top, and we will address those through our panel. So I'm just going to start our timer now. And at this time, you can start to formulate your questions or thoughts. And at the end of the timer, we will kick this off to our panel. Okay, so you can continue to add in your questions or thoughts. We'll keep the thought exchange open, but we will now move this to the panel. And our first question is, how will you socially distance the children with more children in the classroom?
Okay, I'll respond to that question generally, and then I'm going to defer it to our panel. We haven't changed our direction or our guidance regarding the need to make sure that our students are in a classroom where they are 6 feet apart. In the case of kindergarten, we have been able to identify extra classroom spaces in each building, which will serve the kindergarten program by providing the teacher the ability to work with other teachers and the teaching assistant to group kids according to their instructional needs and in small groups so that they are using more than one space so that the social distancing can be maintained. The decisions regarding how that grouping occurs will occur at the classroom level with the teacher responsible for all of the children, but providing support, supervision, and direction to a teaching assistant that will be with the children in a separate space at times during the day, based on the lesson plans and the instructional planning that occurs between the teacher teams and the teaching assistant. So there are extra rooms being used and supervised by teaching assistants to ensure social distancing. I'd like to have one of our principals kind of describe how that will occur specifically in their building. And then I'd like to kick it over to a teacher to talk about some of the ideas that the teacher may have to do the grouping and to make sure that the kids are getting their instructional needs met, but also working in separate spaces so that the classroom space is appropriately managed in line with the social distancing requirements. So I'm going to kick this one to Mr. Grignon, who has one of our largest, if not our largest, elementary school. Talk a little bit about how the room organization is occurring and how the separation of the students is being maintained to ensure social distancing.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Simons, and good evening to all our panelists and also to our families that are watching. As Mr. Simon said, Janae, we are one of the largest elementary schools, and for us to be able to make this change occur at Janae, we actually had to move classrooms around for our kindergarten students to accommodate the size of what our classrooms would need to be to bring back all of our students that are currently in the hybrid model. So from the panelists that are here today, and from a letter that I sent to our families regarding the changes over break, we had to move Mrs. Kieko into a larger space, which was actually our band room. We had to move our band room onto the stage at Janae, which we're fortunate that we have that ability. And we also had to move Mrs. Pagonis out of her classroom into Mrs. Hamill's room, one of our other kindergarten teachers, so that way she could have a larger space for the number of students that she has. And then Mrs. Hamill, who was one of our remote teachers, she was moved into another space to accommodate her needs so that way she could continue to provide her instruction to her students that are virtual at this time. Within the classrooms, we have socially distanced the students 6 feet apart, given them their own trapezoid tables or desks that would allow them to have plenty of space to be able to lay out their materials, work with staff members that might be in the classroom with them to support the learning activities that are taking place. It also allows for us to allow students to still have a mass break during the day, during snack time, or during mass breaks when students may be working independently on completing their assignments that have been assigned by their teachers. To ensure that students are able to enter and leave the classrooms safely, we also look at how we would organize the exit and entering procedures of students in those classrooms to make sure that students are socially distanced. At all of our schools in East Greenbush, all of our schools have spacing throughout the hallways to encourage social distancing as students are walking in the hallways. And I would like to say that I think that our kindergarten students have done a tremendous job learning and adapting to those changes. And I'm sure that they will adapt and and are just overly excited about coming back 5 days a week with their peers that they haven't seen on their opposite day.
Thank you, Mr. Grignon. I'm going to call on Maureen McHugh, who's one of our kindergarten teachers at Genet School, who to talk a little bit about, in general, how she anticipates working with students, the teaching assistant, the other kindergarten teachers, to group students, but also to make sure that they're getting their learning needs met, but also that they are maintaining appropriate social distancing. So, Maureen?
Sure. So first off, we are so excited to have the kids coming back. You know, we were talking about it today in class I was speaking with my own kids in class, and they're like, I can't wait to meet so-and-so that I get to see every Wednesday, so they'll meet in person. You know, so kindergarten is kind of that unique opportunity where other grade levels have met each other in the cafeteria or been together in a classroom the year before, where these guys, you know, haven't really met each other. So they're all very excited to be coming back. They've really been handling, you know, the social distancing piece quite well, in that all of our classrooms have set up tables, you know, the 6 feet apart, but they all have work boxes that have all the materials and journals and all the things that they need for the day in there. And we are kind of setting ourselves up strategically so that we can work maybe with the first 2 or 3 tables that are in a triangle space. The teacher would sit in the middle so that we can do, you know, small group and do, you know, some materials-based things that, you know, in a typical kindergarten year, we might be rotating through centers, things like that. So, you know, we've been creative. We've all kind of worked together to figure out, you know, best practice for giving them all those experiences still, you know, in the classroom. And again, Mr. Grignon kind of spoke to it. They do a really great job. If you've been in any of the elementary buildings, we have all the floors taped off with really nice, you know, spaces for the kids to really be able to visually see how far apart they need to be. And they are very serious about the rules, and they really all want to do a great job. And, you know, so they are really doing a nice job, you know, working hard to, you know, follow all the guidelines that we have in place. But, you know, we're excited to get them back and, you know, get them in the classrooms. Our TAs, you know, kind of work very closely with all of the K teams. And, you know, in a small group setting, I might be working with 3 or 4 kids, you know, in a little triangle, and my TA would be working with a separate set of kids working on, you know, letter sounds or, you know, things, kindergarten things that we're doing. And we do the rotation versus the kids rotating. So, you know, keeps everybody, you know, socially distant, but really engaged and doing lots of different activities that way.
Thank you, Maureen.
You're welcome.
All right, our next question. On snow days, will the kindergarten students be expected to do remote learning?
The answer to that is yes. And I would say that given the fact that this question is a top priority question, I would agree, I would determine that those remote days are not real popular. And I understand that. And just to put this in context, this was a really unique year where in August, we were putting together plans for the year when we only received the guidance from the state on July 21st. So we didn't really know what the reopening rules were going to be. And it took a great deal of thought, effort, and planning on the part of everyone within the district to reopen. We needed a little more time to do that safely. So we changed the school calendar. And we started on September 14th when we had planned to start on September 8th. That change in the school calendar required us to use remote learning to ensure that we were credited by the state education department for student attendance on days when inclement weather prevented our kids from coming into school. It is a pilot that we're using this year. It is necessary from a standpoint of complying with state regulations. It is a regulation that applies through kindergarten through 12th grade. So in the event that we have another inclement weather day, and I'm hoping that we're growing out of that right now, we will have to have kindergarten students accessing the remote learning activities that are available and have been provided by the teachers. It's a modified expectation for students on those days. It's more of a relaxed expectation, and it is a modified expectation for our teachers. And we're still assessing whether or not we would continue this practice next year. But yes, kindergarten students would have to do that, as would every student in the district.
All right, next question. Will kindergarten ever return to the hybrid model if COVID rates go up?
It's possible, hopefully not. There are a couple of different aspects of COVID-19 that impact the district and could potentially cause us to have to change the model. One of the things that we explained at the beginning of the year and throughout various public meetings is we wanted to be prepared as a district in the event that we had to go to a complete virtual model for a period of time or a long period of time. And we haven't had to do that. So the virtual Wednesdays, for example, were intended to provide a means of direct instruction from our teachers to our students through use of technology. And it served its purpose, and that it has trained our kids, our teachers, our technical support folks, and our families on what to anticipate should we have to shift to a virtual model. However, here we are almost in March with 4 months of the school year left. We're entering into the spring, and we hope that that shift will not have to occur, and we feel that we are better prepared for it. The COVID rates themselves are a factor within the community because if you look at the most recent CDC guidance or the New York State Department of Health guidance, you will see that schools are being asked to respond differently depending on the level of community infection spread. So in times when community infection spread is high, such as it was in the month of December and January, we as a school have to be prepared to operate under one methodology of teaching and learning. And when times of infection rate are low, we can open it up, again, under parameters. We're hoping that as we enter into the spring, we will continue to see an infection rate within our community that is relatively low. We could anticipate that if it does start to increase again, and we begin to see the impact on our staff being quarantined, that should be less likely now that our staff has access to vaccinations. And if our students are being impacted, we may have to adjust, but we have a pretty high level of confidence right now that we will be able to maintain this in-person model for right now, the foreseeable future.
All right, next question. Is there any consideration given to increasing recess or class time outside for the kids, maybe more than one recess per day? The CDC recommends a focus on outdoor activities, yet so these kids only get 10 minutes of recess, which doesn't seem age appropriate.
I know that Mr. Alvey is a big fan of recess, and I am as well. So I'm going to kick this one to Mr. Alvey to talk a little bit about recess, what we were doing in the fall, what we're doing in the winter, and what we anticipate we may be able to do in the spring.
I looked into the crystal ball and I thought that one was coming my way. All right, very good. I think we all have cabin fever right now, and we all want to get outside as much as possible. I was telling some of my colleagues the other day, yesterday, on Sunday, there was finally some sun, and I literally sat in my front door in the glass window and just got to enjoy the sun. So I know we're all experiencing cabin fever right now. You know, one of the things that we always look at daily is the weather, right? And so just so our families know what our parameters are, we look at the temperature right now, and our threshold is 20 degrees with the wind chill, and anything below 20 degrees, we unfortunately have to keep our kids in for our recess period. So we monitor the weather daily. What I can share with you is that during the fall, our classrooms were outside, and we did have many opportunities for not only recess periods for our kids to socialize and problem solve, but also we had many of our staff members taking advantage of the outdoors to enjoy instruction. We had, I know many of the buildings developed walking paths and, different opportunities for the outdoors. And I know we will head in that direction again once the weather starts to cooperate a little bit more. So it looks like we're heading in that direction, and we definitely see the opportunity for more outdoor activities for our kids. And knowing that our kindergarten kids are going to be here 5 days a week, there will be more opportunities for that socialization as well.
All right, next question. Will the students' day look similar to what they are now? Will they be spending the entire day with their teacher?
Well, in general, I think the day will be similar in terms of the types of activities that the children are doing, but in order to maintain the social distancing, a grouping strategy is being utilized between the teachers and the teaching assistants. I'm going to ask Marie Kieko to talk a little bit about, I know she hasn't had a full opportunity to plan with her teaching assistant, or maybe she has, but some of the ideas and activities that would occur in a typical day for a kindergarten student with the model that we're following. Marie?
Thanks, Mr. Simons. Yep. So for today, for every day that the students are in school, they do a lot of independent work activities as well as guided activities with their teacher. The teacher usually provides some direct instruction throughout the day, and then students do independent activities to follow that up. And that's very much like what they would be doing in the full-time model that we're going to be returning to. So the teacher will provide the students with the instruction and show them what they are doing for the day, teach them what they need to be taught, and then teaching assistants will be there to help support them in small groups, like Mrs. McHugh said, and through their independent activities. So they do a lot of work to build their independent stamina, very important in kindergarten. And the teacher and the TA will collaborate to make sure that students are having their needs met. The teacher knows obviously what the kids need and helps the TA deliver the instruction just as she would. So instruction is going to look very similar to what they're currently getting, more independent time maybe, which is good. It's what we always do in kindergarten. We increase independent time as the day goes on, but they're still getting that instruction from their teacher.
Thank you, Ms. Kieko. I appreciate that.
All right, next question. Are you prepared to fully reopen the doors to all students when the CDC guidance changes and the 6-foot rule is relaxed?
If I could do that tomorrow, I would. Okay, and I am hoping and monitoring what is happening with the CDC guidance and the New York State Department of Health regulations. One thing that is very important for everyone to understand is the guidelines and the directions that impact our schools are state determinations. In many cases, the state of New York has regulations that comply with the CDC guidelines, and in other cases, they vary. The CDC guidance is only guidance. It is not regulations. The New York State Department of Health is really the controlling agency, and the New York State Education Department that impacts our schools. I'm hopeful that as more of our community members, our teachers, and our staff are vaccinated, that some of the guidance, both at the federal level and at the New York State level, will be revisited. I am advocating for any changes that would continue to allow the schools to operate safely, but loosen up so that we can open our doors and invite all of our children back for in-person learning. I am under the auspices of the New York State Education Department and the New York State Department of Health in terms of what I, as a superintendent, and our Board of Education can do regarding local policy. I also have to ensure that what we are doing in our schools is safe for the children, safe for their families when they go home, and safe for our staff members. And I have a level of confidence that things are going to get better and things are going to open up. And I'm advocating and hopeful that I will be able to do that. And we do stand ready to do that. I wish it were tomorrow, but it can't be.
Right. Next question. What happens if a child is positive or has been in contact with someone positive? Will the entire class have to switch to remote learning?
Not necessarily. One of the things that's really good about the timing that we are doing this right now is we've had really since prior to September, a lot of experience with contact tracing, and our COVID coordinator, Karen Vincent, working with the county. So in most cases, when we are informed of a student who has tested positive, the first thing we have to do is determine, well, when was that child last in class for in-person instruction, and when did that child become symptomatic? And we follow a 48-hour rule established by the CDC and New York State that if a child became symptomatic or a staff member became symptomatic within 48 hours of the last time they were in school, we have to contact trace. We have to find out who was that student around or who was that staff member around. And in those cases, we generally apply a 6-foot rule. How long were they around that person, and within what distance were they around? And so in the case of our classrooms, we have not had to, in the large majority of the cases, shift a full classroom to full remote. We have, in the case of students on the bus, had to quarantine all of the students that were on a particular bus because the rules that were applied by the county for busing has been different. So it all depends on where the children were sitting, who they were in contact with, when they became symptomatic, and when the last time they were in class. And we really have a good handle on that process right now.
All right, next question. If this move is successful, would there be a chance of more elementary students returning to 5 days a week?
I hope so. We're looking at this in stages. We started with kindergarten because we have the enrollment at a level and the number of rooms available at a level where we're able to accommodate that. We hope that as we transition kindergarten back, we can look at potentially other changes in the district to bring more kids back for in-person learning. We are working on this daily.
Here's a comment. I appreciate everything you are doing. Our kindergarten teachers and district administrators are superheroes. Thank you for all you are doing for our kindergartners.
So in a response to this, I'm going to call on one of those superheroes, Sue Pagonis, and I'm going to flip this question around a little bit, not to blindside you, Sue, but you know, we are thankful for the appreciation that we get from our families and our kids. But I'm going to ask you, Sue, to talk about the appreciation that teachers feel for the children. Because I know that at the kindergarten level, there's a lot of passion in the classroom for how the children affect us. So if you want to talk a little bit about how the kids impact you and how they make you feel positive and appreciative, I think that would be well received.
Sure. So kindergartners are, can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So it's awesome to teach kindergarten. It's definitely something that you have to be passionate about. They are the littlest learners, and I, in my opinion, think that they are the most energetic and most passionate about being in school. You just, as a kindergarten teacher, I never know what to expect day in and day out with them. But I can tell you that as tired as I may be at the end of the day, I wouldn't want to do anything else. They are so appreciative of everything that I do as a teacher, and they just make me want to work even harder. They are so excited about learning. They are so excited to be in school. And this year, I have just seen them roll with the punches. I mean, they have just taken everything in stride, and they don't miss a beat. I don't know if this class is just super special or if it's just this year, but they are so resilient and so willing to change on a dime. As Mr. Simons or Mr. Grignon said, I was one of the teachers who had to change classrooms. And, you know, for little people, that's hard. It's a change. They've been going into the same room since September. And they did not miss a beat. It was, you know, a little crazy yesterday and today, moving into a new classroom. There's, you know, we can't use the cubby, so there's some different routines, and they were so patient, not only with me, but with each other. And they were so helpful with each other, and just seeing them interact with one another, it makes my job just so worth it. I would also like to thank the parents and the families of our kindergarten students, because they have just been so amazing as well, rolling with the punches, you know, being totally understanding of us as teachers with, you know, the changes that have happened, and, you know, just accepting a new way of going to school. And without the kids, and definitely without the parents, we would not be able to do our job. And it just makes our job so much, you know, it just makes it so worth it to go to work every day.
Thank you, Sue.
Next question. On the topic of recess, will the different kindergarten classrooms share the same space for recess simultaneously?
That is a question that I'm going to kick over to Mrs. Squillace. And then I may ask a couple of principals to share their answers, because it might look a little different depending on the number of kids you have in kindergarten and the availability of space. And I think there's a difference between what can happen indoor recess versus outdoor recess. So Mrs. Squillace.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Simons. I can speak for Red Mill School, and we actually have 4 sections of kindergarten, and 2 of those classrooms have their lunch period at the same time, and the other 2 have it at a different time. So those classrooms will still go to lunch and recess together, but our recess aides manage the space that we use to allow for that social distancing on the playground. So when there's more than one group out there, one group may be using the playground equipment while another group is using the fields or the sidewalk for sidewalk games. There's plenty of space outside at Red Mill for lots more children. So we will keep them safe, and they will use the same spaces, but be able to have the distance that they need.
Very good. For comparison purposes and different size school, let's talk to Mr. Mahar. Mr. Mahar, in terms of recess and lunch, what are we thinking about in terms of managing the children?
In Belltop, we have 2 kindergarten classes. However, they'll be split apart into 4 rooms. They will, however, all eat at the same time in the cafeteria. We have plenty of social distancing room for that, and we've already set it up. In addition, we have 2 brand new TAs that we hired over the winter break. They started with us yesterday. They're learning the ropes already from the kindergarten teachers, getting the feel for the lay of the land. So similar to Red Mill, we have a lot of space outside. We have the playground, we have field, we have a backfield. On inclement days when the weather's too cold or raining, the TAs will be able to monitor the students within the classroom, in addition to the cafeteria monitors And that's generally what we do typically when the kids stay in. They're brought back to the classroom for indoor recess.
Thank you, Mr. Mahar.
Thank you.
How about Mr. Garab? We got to get Mr. Garab in here from Green Meadow. Let's talk a little bit about lunch and recess for kindergarten.
Sure. And I like recess just as much as Mr. Alvey does. So thank you for calling on me, Mr. Simons. I have 3 kindergarten sections here at Green Meadow. They will all remain in their same classroom that they're in now. Mrs. Maney's classroom is a little bit different in the sense that she already has 2 rooms that are connected and open, so her students will be spread out, and we do have some additional TA support going in there. As far as lunch and recess, all 3 kindergarten sections will eat lunch together at the same time, socially distanced in the cafeteria. I have plenty of room for all of them. All 3 classes go outside at the same time, and it will really be set up like it is now. We basically have 3 different areas outside where our students play. We have the field area that includes the swing sets. We have the playground equipment area, which obviously includes the equipment, and then we have the basketball court area. And we've actually developed a rotation schedule, so kids get, an equal amount of time, as the days and weeks progress to use each area of the playground. And just a shout out to our lunch monitors and our TAs, because they also help out with lunch and recess, for really just doing such a great job monitoring the social distancing, making sure the kids are still having fun. And one last thing about going outside for recess and our kindergarten teachers, you really want to see a kindergarten teacher be a superhero in action. You watch them get all these little 4, 5, and 6-year-olds get ready to go outside for recess. Putting on all those coats and snow pants, they do a phenomenal job, and they truly are superheroes. So thank you.
Mr. Garab.
All right, we have a couple questions related to busing on Wednesdays. Is busing still available on Wednesdays despite it being a remote learning day for most? And then secondly, will the kindergarten students be the only ones on the bus on Wednesdays?
Busing is being provided for kindergartners on Wednesdays, and those bus routes are the same as they are now for kindergartners. There are no changes to bus routes. And the district is currently evaluating some further changes regarding Wednesdays that could result in other kids being bused to school, which we will be discussing tomorrow. That would impact grades 1 through 5. We'll be discussing those at the board meeting tomorrow night, and then communicating out to our families probably tomorrow or the next day. So busing is provided for right now until plans change. Those buses on Wednesdays would be, mostly kindergartners, and perhaps some other students that are being brought in for some additional instruction. We've got to find a question, Mr. Anna, for Mr. McHugh. I've got to get our distinguished assistant superintendent in here.
All right, this one might work for him. Will kindergarten go to school on the in-person days that have been changed to remote days? In other words, June 1st was in person, but has been changed to remote.
I'm gonna trust that Mr. McHugh can handle this one. I think I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna kick it to Mr. McHugh to see if he's been listening in my meetings.
I'm not going to get a consequence, am I, if I get this
No,
wrong?
I'm just teasing.
There's a penalty box.
I'm just teasing.
So the way I'm reading this, will kindergarten go to school on the in-person days that have been changed to remote days? So this could be the remote learning days for inclement days, but I think, Mr. Simons, I think I'm going to defer this question to you.
This is a question related to the emergency.
For the emergency closing days, right?
These are June 1st is one of the days that we previously announced that that students would have to participate in remote instruction. We will be looking at the calendar soon after we have some assurances that the weather is breaking and becoming nicer, and we will be announcing some adjustments to the calendar that may occur. We are looking for a little bit more information from the state right now regarding emergency snow days that have already been utilized. For example, there is some indication that in some cases when the schools are closed due to inclement weather and we have shifted to remote days, if the governor calls a state of emergency, that state of emergency does not require the school to make up the day. We've asked the question of the state because that may affect those spring days and whether or not students have to attend all of those days that we previously announced. We're looking into it. So, Mr. McHugh, I stumped you on that one.
I appreciate that.
It's a very rare occasion that Mr. McHugh is not prepared, and he was prepared at this time, but that's something that is a failure of myself to communicate.
All right, Mr. Simons, it's 7:30 now. Do you want to take a few more
We'll take a couple
questions?
more. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I cheated though, Mr. McHugh, because I had the calendar under my glass on my desk. And that's how I knew what that June 1st date question was all about.
All right, next question. I worry my daughter is behind in her reading, unfortunately. Will the teachers be able to develop stronger reading skills and build in that confidence?
Yes, I would say that the in-person learning provides an additional opportunity and better context to work on reading skills. I think that one of the things that we have done as a district has maintained those services such as academic intervention services to address students that may need more work in reading. One of the things that we will be doing and are doing now is we do continuous screening and assessment of students' reading skills, and any students who require additional support. If, for example, as they transition from kindergarten to first grade, we are making sure that those services would be available to make up for some of the learning gaps that our students may be experiencing. I don't know if any of our teachers want to talk a little bit about reading. I think overall, all districts are anticipating some needs that we will have to address once we get past this pandemic in terms of academics. So I wouldn't worry that your children are falling behind. We have opportunities that will come to us in the future and supports to be able to make up for some of those gaps. Anybody want to add to that question? That's a really important question.
I can speak to it just briefly. In a classroom setting of, 16, 17 students, we, with TA support, our reading intervention people are fabulous in, targeting skills that students really need to work on. Coming out of a hybrid model into a 5-day setting will really allow us to target those skills. And we are kind of in a period of assessment right now, so we can see, learning gaps and where kids need some extra time. Having them 5 days now will really allow us to, add in a whole lot more targeted intervention stuff for them. And so I know it has been a concern for parents, and we're, as kindergarten teachers, super excited to get them back and have, more time with them face to face. So,
in addition, there is a new initiative that Mr. McHugh is leading with our teachers with the University of Albany that has a world-renowned literacy department. And we're excited that we are able to provide some professional development for our teachers to specifically address the instruction in reading. Mr. McHugh, you want to talk a little bit about that UAlbany initiative?
I'd love to talk about that initiative. It's much better than the June 1st question. So we've been working with the University of Albany's literacy department for about a year to try to organize a collaborative initiative between the University of Albany and our district. We have 32 of our teachers engaging in 35 hours of professional development, along with some embedded support, meaning that some of the professors from the University of Albany will actually be in our elementary buildings working alongside our primary grade level teachers. But it's really focused on really being able to diagnose reading challenges and being able to really provide targeted instruction to address that deficit. The other part of that is that we have implemented the new universal screeners, K through 5, and we are progress monitoring constantly. So we are looking at that data. We are even in our planning for 2021-22 school year. We're thinking about making sure that we have supports in place to really address any loss of learning. So our young students are resilient for the most part, and exposure to print, good literature, and having the opportunity to interact with text, students really progress for the most part remarkably well. But we are constantly planning and thinking about interventions for our students. We know that early intervention is important, but there's a lot of really neat stuff going on right now. And obviously with more in-person learning time, our students will progress more rapidly.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. How about two more, Mr. M?
Okay, these are, I'll call this one question. They're on the same topic. Can we switch between in-person and remote learning? And will there be room for students to return from full remote program to the in-person if I choose to send my child back?
Okay. Given the time of year, we would ask if families are interested in having their children return from the full remote program to contact the building principal to discuss that. The answer is going to vary by building and grade level. We ideally want to be able to accommodate that change. We are close in some buildings to the maximum number of children that would be permitted in certain grade levels and classrooms under the social distancing requirements. So in a couple of cases, in a couple of buildings, certain grade levels are getting close to our cap. So I would encourage you to contact the building principal, talk about it a little bit. If there is a situation in which you would like your child to return to in-person learning and the number of students in a given class or grade level in the building is at maximum, we can work with you if you are interested in finding available space in a different school than what your neighborhood attendance zone is assigned to. That may be a conversation between you and the principal regarding the needs of your child, your comfort level. In the event that you make that decision and your child is returning to in-person learning in a building that may not be the building that is assigned to your area of residence, we would always provide you with an opportunity when things get better post-COVID and we're back to somewhat normal operations to either return to your home school. But in many cases, as we've made these kinds of changes over the years and try to accommodate enrollment by having families come to a different building, they tend to stay because they make friendships and the families love the school. So we'll work through it with you and we'll see what we can do to accommodate the change based on our capacity at specific grade levels and buildings. A couple of buildings where it's really tight at certain grade levels.
All right, last question on the topic of bringing things back and forth between school and home. Can the kids now leave their Chromebooks at school, or will they have to continue to bring them back and forth to school? And the same thing for winter gear, snow pants, and alike.
That sounds like a great question for, let's see, Marie. I think that is a determination that is made by the teacher in general.
I knew
So
you were gonna call on me.
I wanted to get you back in here, so.
Yeah. So as far as snow gear goes, I know at Janae that we have decided students will be able to leave their things because we now have like space to keep their things in with their totes. But obviously, I know that's kind of a building by building question, depending on space. I would assume other buildings would be the same, but I can't completely speak to that. And then tablets also are kind of a teacher by teacher basis, I would say. It kind of depends on what the teachers want students to do with the tablets. So I don't know if I can give a clear answer for that one. Sorry.
I also think with the question of the Chromebooks coming back and forth, I guess it's going to depend on the instruction. Mr. Goodwin is our Chromebook / technology director expert. So, Mr. Goodwin, you got any thoughts on bringing the Chromebooks back and forth? I think in some cases it depends on the assignment of the teachers.
I absolutely agree.
So,
Yeah, that's, Ms. Giacco got that absolutely 100%. That's how I would go with that.
okay. Very good. I know I said two more. Let's take one more, Mr. Adam.
All right. Let me see where we were. Okay. Will any testing, random or otherwise, be required? And I'm assuming that is related to COVID testing.
Not at this point. The state, through the county departments of health, have not required testing as a condition to increase in-person learning. There are some districts, more so in Albany County, because Albany County Department of Health is different than Rensselaer County Department of Health, who implemented the surveillance testing as a proactive measure to determine whether or not how the infection rate spread was impacting the schools. In all of those cases, particularly in larger districts like East Greenbush, the number of children that tested positive were 0 and at most 1 or 2 in one district out of 300 to 400 tests. We have not been given in our county assurances that a supply of tests would be available to sufficiently implement a surveillance testing program. We do have some tests that were procured from Questar BOCES for the purposes of microcluster testing. If you remember, the state was implementing a microcluster strategy that in the event that schools were in areas that had high infection rates, we would be required to do testing in order to remain open. The governor shifted that program away from infection rates to hospitalization rates, and it never was fully implemented in a way that impacted our district. Those tests were procured by Questar. We're using those tests where we can as an additional measure to ensure health and safety, and we've been testing our athletes who are participating in winter sports, and as of today, we've tested approximately 70 or more student athletes, and we've had 0 positive results on COVID-19. So that does not mean that in the event that we are looking at new guidance for September, that testing might not be a requirement. It could be a requirement that is put in place, and if so, we'll make sure that the community understands how that testing would be implemented. But right now, it is not a condition for increasing the number of children that are coming into school every day.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Simons. I will stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to you.
So I'm going to ask any panelists to share any final thoughts you may have on our excitement and anticipation for March 1st, or anything else you want to say regarding this great opportunity that we are being afforded by having more of your children into our schools.
Mr. Simons, if you don't mind, I will speak. I was able to go into our kindergarten classrooms the last couple of days since we've been back from the break, and they're already all set up with the extra desks in there, and the students were just so adorable. The minute I walked in the room, Mrs. Squillaci, let me show you my new desk, where it's sitting, and I'm going to get to sit next to Chloe, and she's my friend that I see on Wednesdays. And it was just so great to hear how excited the kids are, and I know that our teaching teams are really looking forward to that additional face-to-face time with the kids, and they feel like they can really do so much in terms of their learning and their progress and social, emotional, all around for our kids. So we're really excited to have them back.
Good.
Mr.
Thank you,
Simons,
Mr.
if I may,
Mr. Grignon.
I'd like to second whatever, everything that Mrs. Squadgy said, but I'd also like to put a shout out to our custodial teams who did a tremendous job getting all of our rooms ready. And I know Mike Rowe and his team here at Janae, I was in over break looking over things and talking with the teachers and saying, no, we want this way. So they were really patient with us, getting it just right for the kids, make sure that the transition will be seamless for them to come back to us full time on March 1st. Kudos to the maintenance teams.
Thank you, Mr. Grignon. Anyone else? So thank you for joining us this evening, and we appreciate all of the support, the questions, and the ongoing conversations that we're having to make sure that your children are taken care of. I'll leave you with just a few final thoughts. When I started in East Greenbush as a superintendent, I'm not from East Greenbush, but I've been here now for 5 years, and I love it here. And one of the things that I've really grown to value about our district is the sense of community. And during good times and progressive times, and during times when we've had to pull together to do things that are really difficult and challenging and impacting people differently. The families of our district, particularly the families of our youngest children, are critically important. And it's very important to remember that we will get past COVID-19. And this year, kindergarten, while different, I hope that through working together with the district and through the support that we're able to provide now and into the future, that we all take the long view, because it'll be about 13 years from now that we will be congratulating your child as they walk across the graduation stage at Columbia High School. So this is a moment in time. It's been a difficult moment in time, but it also is providing an opportunity for us as we move towards better days, both this year and next year. And we hope that our families that are just starting out with their little ones in our schools will get more involved in the district, whether that be in your building, through the PTO, whether that be on some of our district committees. We're always looking for young families to come and help us with various issues, whether that be our building, our budget review and advisory committee that works on the budget. So this is my shameless attempt to recruit you as families to join us in helping to keep this outstanding district and maintaining the sense of community and caring that East Greenbush is known for as your kids progress throughout the district. So thank you for what you're doing now. We hope that we will continue to look at this from a long view, that we will get past the challenges of your child's first year of school. And maybe we'll all look back that there were some opportunities embedded in those challenges and some silver linings within those clouds as we progress. We've got 13 years to go, and your kids are going to do quite well. I'm very confident in that, because of the family support that you provide them, because of the team that we have assembled here, and because all of the staff in all of the schools only want what's best for your children. So thank you for being with us tonight. Appreciate everybody's help with this conversation. And I look forward to coming into the schools on March 1st. I will be appropriately socially distanced to welcome the children all back to an in-person setting. Thank you very much and have a good evening.